Just one or two points of yesterday. The meditation, upasana, is enjoined for, for their sake out of compassion. There, in the sense, those who worship, those who do actions with fruits. The views of dualists are unreal, for it is based on the defects such as attachment and repulsion. They say the supreme truth can be their doctrine alone. Whatever they conclude in their doctrine, that they say the supreme truth. Being thus attached, seeing their opponents, they repulse with a view to safeguard their own conclusions. The non-duality says, because we see non-difference, we does not get into conflict with the dualists. This much. Hmm? Now, the opponent is asking, now is being said, for what reason this view is not opposed to theirs? Just we heard that the followers of non-dualism, they are not having any repulsion towards the dualists or followers of dualism. That he is asking, kena hetuna taina viruddhyate ityuchyate. Is being said, for what reason this view of non-dualist is not opposed to theirs, the dualists. For that, he gives the stanza, though the dualist is having attachment or repulsion, the non-dualist is not having. What is the reason? For that he has given the Karika 18. Advaitam paramartho hi dvaitam tadvedha uchyate tesham ubhayata advaitam tenayam na viruddhyate. Non-duality is indeed the supreme reality, inasmuch as duality is said to be its product. The duality is the product of non-duality, he says. For them, duality constitutes both real and the unreal. Hence, our view is not opposed to theirs. Tesham paramartho hi dvaitam tadvedha uchyate. The non-duality is real and its product, he says, it is duality. And we consider that the phenomenal world, the relative plane as unreal. But for them, the phenomenal also is real, and the appearance, of course, is the appearance, and the absolute also is real. So he says, Tesham Ubhayata Dvaitam. The duality we don't accept in relative plane. Though we stay in duality, thinking that this is unreal, we get detached. But they say it is real and get attached to that, and they show repulsion. Not only this, other things also, he says. Then, if you say, because the duality is illusion, you are not quarreling in the relative terms, but you may have quarrel with them in the absolute. Then he says, the duality of that type is not there. Now, the opponent is asking the proponent, they are having an imaginary idea that relative duality is real, and they accept some absolute reality also, like space. Yes, it is one, it is absolute. So, you may differ with them. See, one space, and he says that is real. So, you may differ with them. He says that ether also is unreal. That's why he says that one ether, which they call the absolute reality, even according to the atheist, and I think even some Vaisheshikas, they accept it as the ether as absolute reality, those whoever. So, he says, there is no absolute reality in duality. That's what he meant to say. Duality of that type is not there. Tesham. That's why he says, for them the duality constitutes both the real and the unreal. Real of the absolute plane, the unreal, the appearance. Their duality constitutes in the relative and absolute only dual. We say the duality is unreal, they say it is real. So, there is no opposition with dualist. For the non-dualist, as they know the duality is unreal, as in the case of rope snake. The non-dualist always says whatever they accept as real in the relative plane, that the proponent does not accept. He simply says it is a snake, rope snake. Opponent asks a question, answer will be given through this stanza. Now, the proponent is giving a logic. Paramarthatva abhimatam dvaitam mithya dvaitatvat sampratipanna sukti rupyavat. See, the dualist is accepting the world as real. That is, here he told, Paramartha Abhimatam Dvaitam. The duality, when they are accepting as real, I say, the proponent says, is mithya. It is only an appearance because of duality. How? As we both agree. Say the dualist also agrees and the non-dualist also agrees. The appearance, a snake on the rope, silver on the pearl, mother pearl, all these things they do. So that is called sampratipannavat. The illustration should be accepted by both the parties. That's why it says sampratipannavat. And what is the sukti rupyavat? As the silver and the mother pearl. So now what the proponent says, it is unreal. The duality which you have accepted is unreal. While explaining this sloka, a reason is given. Non-duality is indeed the supreme reality. Inasmuch as duality is said to be its product, for them, duality constitutes both the real and the unreal. Hence, this our view is not opposite to theirs. Our view, non-duality, their view, duality. Dvaitasya advaita karyatve pramanamaha. He said in the Karika that the duality is said to be the product of non-duality. For that he is giving a proof. That's what he says. Ekameva dvitiyam advaitam paramartho hi. Now I am reading the Bhashya. Advaitam paramartho hi yasmad advaitam nanatvam. Yasmad advaitam nanatvam tasya advaitasya bhedah. The supreme reality is only the non-duality. And then what is the difference? We see difference in the phenomenal world. Tasya advaitasya bhedaha. That is the product. Tad bhedaha tasya karyam. That is its effect, he says. That means the non-duality is the cause and duality is the effect. Ekameva dvitiyam. Because of the proof of Vedas, the duality is the effect of non-duality. Cause and effect are one. If you say effect is unreal, so cause also will become unreal. See, when we say the cause and effect are one, only whatever is there in the cause, that it is manifesting as the effect. Just like the clay becoming the pot. In the pot also clay only is there. If you say the effect is real, then it is all right. The cause is. But if you say the other way, if you say effect is unreal, so cause also becomes unreal. This is from the opponent side he is telling. Not so. Now the opponent is telling, what is telling? Cause and effects are one. What you have told, the non-duality is the effect and duality is the non-duality is the cause and duality is the effect, or it is the product. Then, you see, if you say effect is unreal, the opponent is asking, the cause also becomes unreal. Because the cause and effect are not different. This is the question of the dualist to the non-dualist. If you say the effect is unreal, cause also should be unreal. He says it is not so, because the scriptures say, Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Svetaketo. Now, for example, let us take the cause is, the effect is unreal, as the words of the opponent. If you say the effect is unreal, then the teaching that has been given to Svetaketu by Uddalaka, it should be unreal. Then how he will get into the reality? And Svetaketu is existing. We negate all the sheets, but we are not negating the existence. An existing person, if you tell him, you are unreal, you are not there, you will not be there, will he accept? So, if the opponent says, because the effect is unreal, the cause also will be unreal, it cannot be so. A real existing being, he gets the teachings, but not an unreal existing part or something. It is not having existence, it is not having consciousness. So, what you say is not correct. Tat Satyam Satma Tattvamasi Svetaketo. It is real and you are that, thou art that. No, here, for a non-existing being, the instructions are not given. Then in both these ways, it will become only unreal. It is not so. Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Svetaketu.
Swamiji explained right now about the proof that is being brought by the proponent is that the non-dualist says that the dual world, which is declared by the non-dualist to be
Which is?
which is declared
Ah.
declared by the non-dualist to be of the nature of appearance or not real, is the effect of non-duality. Then the opponent says, because the effect resides in the cause, therefore, if the effect
Is unreal.
is unreal, the cause also must be unreal.
Unreal.
Then the proponent answers, saying that
Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Svetaketu.
okay, you take this as an example, and this is where I'm trying to clarify. When the teacher is teaching Shvetaketu, telling Shvetaketu that thou art, Swamasi, there in Shvetaketu, there are two things. There is a a name and a form
Hmm.
of Shvetakepti, which is like the pot.
Hmm.
But also there is the real thing.
Ah.
So Swamiji said, for example, the teacher is not going to teach a pot.
Hmm.
Why the teacher is not going to teach a pot? Because the pot is jada. So something which is jada cannot be taught. We cannot say to a jada thing takwamasi, that's the word. So that the word relates to what is real, which is the consciousness. So when we look at Shvetaketu, we see the Shvetaketu. We didn't learn this here, but we are learning this in this ashram, that everything, every object has 5
Anyway.
aspects. Nama, Rupa, Satchit, Ananda. So when he says Tatvamasi, it does not relate to Nama Rupa. It does not relate to the name and the form. But it does relate to Satchit and Ananda. Means to, and that cannot be denied.
That
Other
cannot be.
words, a person cannot say, I do not exist.
Hmm.
So, while the dualist does relate to the name and the form,
The dualist?
relates to the name and the form,
Yes.
because the dualist relates to the name because it is the name and the form that brings the dualist to say that you are saying that this is unreal, means duality, but the cause of duality is non-duality, therefore non-duality also must be unreal.
Hmm.
Therefore the dualist relates to the name and the form.
Action.
They do not relate to Satchidananda.
Sachidananda.
So,
If at all it belongs to Sachidananda, then there will be no dualism.
yes.
You.
So when Gaudapada says in the Karika
Hmm.
that the non-dualist is the cause of dualism, he says this, does he say it in the sense of the rope is the substratum of the false snake, in that sense?
No.
No.
Says, see, ekameva dvitiyam. He has given. That means only one real thing was there. It has become many. In the sense, the same one is both material cause as well as instrumental cause. But the dualist says the effect and the cause are one, taking standpoint from only the material cause, but not the instrumental cause. Ekameva dvitiyam says, it has become many. One has become many. In what sense? That one was both the material cause as well as the instrumental cause. But when the dualist asks, he takes into consideration only the material cause. The material cause is not different. If it is real, this is also real. If it is unreal, it should be unreal. So, the dualist here is asking from the standpoint of material cause only. But the non-dualist answers from the ekameva dvitiyam, it is both, and as the dualist is attached to the name and form, the non-dualist is not attached. That's why even while telling Swetaketu, Sadeva Somidam agra asit, tada surjata, only one thing was there that has created, and only 3 elements in everything. If you remove these 3 elements, nothing will remain. the name and form will go away. But existence is there. That existence is Satchidananda and the what that. So in this way, here the proponent is talking from, we can say, from the absolute point, or say he says the non-duality has become the duality, means it is both the instrumental and material cause. But the opponent is asking, taking only the material cause. So we find little difference.
Swamiji, does it imply, from this discussion, does it imply, because the opponent takes only the material, and because the non-dualist says that this is just an appearance or unreal, does it imply, based on what the opponent says, that because the effect of the material cause is unreal, from this we can learn that the cause of the material cause itself ultimately is unreal?
Material cause is unreal.
Yes.
But where will the go instrumental cause? What you see, he is pointing out to the non-duality. If you say the duality is unreal, the non-duality should be unreal. But he is taking only the material cause, but he is not adding the both. That is why he says the duality is also real. In which way it is real? From which standpoint? Taking into consideration the name and form. And he says, even the Visishtadvaiti, Dvaiti is still more lower, but they say, see, a spark cannot be the full fire. It is not having so much of power. So, in the relative plane, you should keep the separation. And this is real, he says. Whatever we see in duality, he accepts almost everything as real. That's why he is called a dualist. But what he says, the non-dual is unreal. If it is unreal, where from you have come? We are told, from the non-dual self, the duality has come. If you say that it is unreal, and he is accepting in duality also one God is there, from his all the creation has come. And if he says the non-dual is unreal, then there is no God also. That means in one way we can say he is refuting his own statement. This is a very minute discussion where they differ, where they don't differ. That's why after hearing, the contemplation, manana is necessary. Otherwise, what we hear, we forget. Tat satyam tattvamasi svetaketu. Advaitam dvaitena naviruddhyate. And now he says, the non-dualism is not against the dualism. He is giving the reason. Upapattescha tat tejo asrita. asrujata. In Chandogya, while teaching to Svetaketu, he says, Ekmeva Dvitiyam, only one thing was there. Tat Satyam Saatma. Afterwards he says, but in the middle he says, Tat Tejo Asrujata. What the oneness is there, that has created fire. Then, you see, as the cause is real, so effects also should be real. Just supposing, taking the argument of opponent, if the cause is real, tat tejo asrujata. Effect also should be real. Then the argument is, the cause can separately exist without the effect, but the effect cannot exist without the cause. Wherever clay is there, their pot is not there, but in pot clay is there. Wherever pot is there, their clay is there. But wherever clay is there is no pot. The clay is all over the world. Are you going to say everywhere only pots are there? Then what do you conclude? The effect can stay without the cause. Cause can stay without the effect. But the effect cannot stay without the cause. The effect is, see, just transformed as the cause. Now, then there are two portions in the effect. That is, Satchidananda also is there and name and form also there. So we are not negating the existence of the one that which is coming. What we are negating? The name and form. That now he is going to tell so many reasons. Upapattesya swachita. The same thing now is coming. Upapattesya swachitta spandana bhave samadho murchayam sushupto cha bhavad ataha tadvedha uchite dvaitam. Non-duality is the supreme reality. Since duality consisting in diversity is said to be the product of non-duality, as supported by the Shruti passage, one only without a second, it created fire. And also by reason for duality is absent during unconsciousness, deep sleep, or trance, when the activities of the mind cease. See, this is more important. Also by reason, duality is absent, he says. When you are unconscious, when you are in deep sleep, when you are in a trance, samadhi, then where has this duality has gone? Because mind is not working there, duality is not there. That is why the non-dualist says it is only a product. Or we can say it is a byproduct. The product is Atman. Byproducts are name and form. Byproduct can be removed, negated. Product cannot be negated. Upapattesya is telling the reason is short. He says, Swachitta spandana bhave. When the mind is not working, or the duality is absent, when the activities of mind cease. When the activities of the mind cease, then we know better what deep sleep is, when the mind is not working. And he says, chitta spanda abhave. There he has elaborately discussed in deep sleep, the oscillations of the mind are not there as they are in the waking and dream. So, in deep sleep, there is no activity of the mind. Chitta spanda bhave. Mithya jnana uparame. Now, in trance or in samadhi, say, mind has just experienced what it has experienced, the oneness. But still the mind is not stable in that oneness, but it has experienced. That joy he can never forget. The joy of oneness, even if he is having a glimpse, then also he will never forget. For 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 seconds, if he is having the glimpse, all through the life he will never forget. Then he clearly sees that the duality is non-existing. That's why Sri Ramakrishna, he gives an example, illustration. What he says, there was a high wall and it is in the 4 sides. Inside something is going on. So a group of persons went there. They wanted to see what is going on there inside. So he climbs the ladder, stands on the wall, sees inside, and he just jumps inside. Nobody there to come and tell back what is going on. So, the experience, then when he is experiencing even for a short time, then what will happen? Then he clearly understands that bliss is only the real thing, that this bliss or happiness that we are getting in these worldly objects is not real. He realizes, he experiences. And again, he wanted to get that. So he will be stymied. The waking is compared to dream. Waking is compared to dream by the non-dualist. That is why also we say the duality is the product of non-duality. Why? Because waking is also like a dream. That he says, waking state is unreal because you are seeing as you see the dream. The cause does not undergo change even after producing effect. As the ether, so also the consciousness. If it would have been changed, let us suppose, the one consciousness has created. It has created so many individuals. And if it would have been changed, then you will not happiness or bliss in deep sleep. Because it is changing. Changing thing is not real. But everybody is getting the same happiness in sleep. That it is not changing in others. So we say it is not changing. A unchanging thing is always real. Changing thing is not real. And if you ask the non-dualist, then what is the effect? He says, it is only vacha ramana vikaro namadheyam. It is only just to speak through mouth. Number one. Number two, I say it is imagination of your mind. Vacharambanam, just whenever you open your mouth, you are in duality. And another thing, in duality, the names and forms are there. What you talk of? Only names and forms. And about the absolute, you cannot open your mouth. You cannot say. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, there is only one thing in the whole world that has not become Uchishtam. Uchishtam, you see, whenever something is prepared, you just taste. Even while preparing also you taste. Even before serving also you taste. When something touches to your hand, then also you taste. Of course, you are not so much accustomed to immediately wash your hands. That is a different thing. And there is only one thing which was not tasted by anybody. That is Brahman. Because you cannot even speak of it. That's what he says. There is only one thing real in the whole world which you have not tasted. That is your own self. That is Brahman. Because you can experience it. You cannot say in words. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The mind with speech reverts back. He says. And not only this, again he says, manasaivanu drashtavyam. When you say the mind and speech reverts back from the self, again why do you say through mind alone you can get into it? Drishyate tvagriya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadasyavi. By the concentrated mind you can experience it. Why you say? Only after dissolving the mind you can experience it. As long as you are having the mind and the attachment to it and the impurities in it, you cannot get into it. That is the meaning. So, to put in short, the impure mind cannot experience that. The pure mind can experience, but that also cannot speak. Yesterday, I told that Sukadeva and Narada, what they are speaking, how they are speaking of God. They say simply 2 morsels of water from the sea they have drank, and that they are explaining. That Sri Ramakrishna says. So they are called Nitya Siddhas. They are always, they are realized, and they are stay always as realized persons only. Dvaitinantu tesham paramarthatascha aparamarthatascha ubhayathabi dvaitameva. Now he says, For the dualist, in both the way, it is only duality. But for the dualist, there is duality alone for both the supreme reality and unreality. Say, for the duality alone, for both the supreme reality is a dual, and the unreality is also dual. Though these deluded men have a dualistic vision, see, now Shankaracharya says, though these deluded men have a dualistic vision, and we the undeluded have a non-dualistic vision, as supported by the Sruti such as the Lord, due to Maya, appears as manifold. Then there is not that second entity. We do not, on account of the reason, become opposite to them. By reason, we are not opposite to them. We take the support of Shrutis. Now, three things are necessary. Complete support of scriptures and teachings from a learned master and your experience. When these three things are parallel, when they coincide with one another, then only you will be having the realization. In my last teachings, I gave the illustration of a gun. Of a gun. You remember?
Gun, that illustration of a gun.
I gave.
Pistol, gun.
Not actually the pistol, small one. Rifle.
Shotgun.
Shotgun, stun gun, you say whatever you want. So, when they teach shooting, what they say, the foresight tip, the backside U, and the right edge should be parallel. You must have heard. We heard in our college days. The foresight tip, he says. The barrel is there. Above that, a small piece of iron will be there, and it is just, and that one. And he says, when you see above, a U form is there. So what they do, the U will be like this, and this foresight tip should come like this. And your right eye should be parallel up to the target. Then only, in the same way, here now, what is the illustration? Illustration, what are we to derive from the illustration? Whatever teachings that are given by the master, and whatever scripture says, they should coincide, and your experience also should coincide, should be parallel. Then only you will be having the self-experience. If these three things, even one fellow is this side, that side, he will not. In shooting, you see, a little that side means grouping will not come, they say. The grouping is, if 100 meters distance is there, you should shoot all the rounds in 6 inches area. How much distance? 100 meters distance. How you will get? So every round should be in very nearer by. That is called grouping. Oh, in the same way here also, all the three things. A little that side means instead of 6 inches, you will get 14 inches. You have failed. That should not be the case. So the teachings of the master and the teachings of the scriptures and your experience should coincide. Then only you will be having the highest experience of the self, and that you will call non-duality. There is no oscillations of the mind. This remember. Manasaivaanu drashtavyam, when I say, mind also has dissolved. There is no the Trinity, triad is not there. The knower, knowing and known, the three things are not there. Dvaitinantu, but he says, we, the undiluted, have non-dualistic vision as supported by Shruti. The Lord, due to Maya, appears as manifold. Indro Maya bhi pararupayite, he says. And natu tadvitiyam asti. There is not the second entity. We do not, on account of that reason, become opposite to them. Because we are the follower of non-duality. We never oppose anybody. He gives very good example afterwards. Huh? Oh. Here you see, Indro Maya bhi pururupam iyate. Instead of pa, he has put shu. Sha. That is, if you write pa in Sanskrit, it will be like that. But if you cut, it will become shu. So one, that he says. Dvaitinantu. We are taught in such a way, even if small mistake is there, we should correct it. The book which is having mistakes, we should not follow. That's what our teacher says, our teachers told. So, at times whenever we find, we correct it. For dualists, in both absolute and relative is only dualism. But the dualism is only an appearance, unreal. But dualist goes against monist, non-dualist. Yadicha. कहाँ है? यदि तेषां भ्रान्तानां द्वैतदृष्टिर् अस्माकम् अद्वैतदृष्टिर् अभ्रान्तानां. They are deluded and we are not. तेन अयं हेतुनां अस्मत् पक्षो न विरुध्यते. Because they are seeing the duality, they cannot refute us. Asmat paksho na virudyate, and we are not different from them. He says. The dualists are in illusion, but non-dualist is having proof. This he is showing through the illustration. Yatha. Oh, acha. Now he is giving the illustration. The illustration is, you see, the non-dualist is sitting on the elephant. And the dualist is sitting below, just like a pit, something like that. And he is little eccentric. Eccentric. That's why he says, you see, I am opposing you. So you ride the elephant on me. Even then, the non-dualist who is sitting on the elephant will not ride on him. Why? We are not having any opposition. That means, he says, you are talking like a madcap, but we are not madcaps. You are deluded, we are not deluded. That's why should I ride? He goes from the side. That is the that he is telling. Yatha matta gajarudha unmattam bhumishtam prati gajarodoham gajam vahayamam prati iti brvanamapi tam prati na vahayati avirodha buddhya tadvat. Just as a man seated on an elephant in rut does not drive the elephant towards a mad fellow who, standing on the wayside, says, I am seated on an elephant, set against you, drive your elephant towards me. He is sitting in a pit. And what he is telling, I am sitting on an elephant, so you ride on me. Since he has no ill will towards that madman, the non-dualist is not having any ill will towards that madman. So too, we do not view the dualist with inimical feelings. Thus, in reality, the knower of Brahman is nothing but the self of the dualist. This is more important. The knower of Brahman is nothing but the self of the dualist. For this reason, this our view is not opposed to this. For this reason, our view is not opposed to this. Now, the subcommentary says, the cause and effect are not different. Then what is the result? Tataha. Tataha paramarthato brahmavidatma eva dvaitinam. In reality, knower of Brahman is nothing but the self of dualist. After completely observing one's own side, there is no difference between the dualism and non-dualism. Then what is the result? Now both the sides are there, opponent and proponent. They are thorough with their doctrine. And now the non-dualist says, difference is not there. Then what is the result? Then he says, Tena ayam hetuna asmat paksho na viruddhite taihi. For this reason, this our view is not opposed to theirs. Now, with this, we have concluded the 18th Karika. Now, we are going to the 19th. Slowly again it is starting. It is not Mashi. But all right. No. The non-dualism has changed to, is all right? Ah. గొంతు పాడింది. Let us finish this one. The non-dualism has changed to dualism. So, duality may be real. Now he is asking the question again. Non-duality has become the duality. When the non-duality is real, the duality also should be real. Then he says, Maya vidhyate hi yetan na anyatha ajam kathanchana tattvato vidhyamane hi matyatam amrutam vrajet. Thus, this unborn self undergoes modification through Maya, not in any other way. For if the modification sought to be a reality, the immortal would tend to be mortal. The real becomes unreal. He asked, the non-duality has been changed to duality. When that is real, this also should be real. Then he says, through Maya, the modifications are there. And if you say the duality, for if the modifications are to be reality, modifications, he says, not the Atman is not taking. Modifications means changing things. The immortal would tend to be mortal. If they do not accept the Vivartavada, then what is the defect? The non-dualist says, when you see a snake on the rope is not changing. But because of Maya or ignorance, whatever, you are seeing that a snake there. Ignorance is changing, but the rope is not changing. Maya, due to Maya, we see the change of the elements and the creation. But Brahman is not changing. So, he says, Parinami upadana karanam Maya. Aparinami upadana karanam vivartam. As the rope is not changing, so also the consciousness is not changing. What is changing? Only the illusion is changing. And a changing thing is not real. Now he is asking, if the dualist, he is Parinamavada, just like Sankhya. If he is not accepting our view Vivartavada, what will happen? Tatvataha. That he says, for if the modifications are to be a reality, the immortal would tend to be mortal. Then he says that changing modifications are real. That is duality. Then if he sees a snake on the rope, the snake should bite him because he says it is real. Is it biting? In the same way, if the modifications are real, his body also is a modification, so he should be a real man of thousands of years. Where is the reality in his modifications? Actually, you must be knowing actually what happened. The Ramanuja is Visishtadvaitin. That is, before creation, that everything is non-duality, and after creation, it is something like duality. That's what he says. That's why it is not non-duality. With an adjective, he says Visishta, something different from the... What happened? His guru gave initiation to him. To whom? Ramanuja. Then he told, you see, this sacred mantra you should not tell to anybody. If I say, you will go to hell, then in the evening, he went to the temple and called all the village people, town people, everybody called to the temple. And he has climbed the high pillar, and from there he has shouted the mantra. You hear, this is sacred mantra. If you chant this, you will all be going to the heaven. Then his teacher said, why you have told? See, I am the 1%, I am going to hell, that is all right, but so many persons will be going to heaven. That's why I have told, he says. Then the master was very happy. He was having, say, compassion. He is not selfish. For that, to uplift the low and medium people, intellects, he has started this. That God is different, you are different, you have to worship. By worshipping, you will go to heaven and you will get so many material happiness as well as you will go to Vaikuntha, you will get all these things, he says. It is a fact. And why? Because everybody cannot give up the desires, putreshna, lokeshna, vitteshna, and take sannyasa, and they stick only to the scriptures. Others are having so many desires, they stay in the worldly life, they want to fulfill their desires. So, to uplift the low and middle people also, there is a change by the will of the Lord. Previously also I told, the Tirupati Balaji temple is Balaji. Bala is the form of mother. Whenever we see in a temple that if mother stays alone, but if the father is there, with him mother also will be there. And mother's temples we see many separately. In the same way, this Bala is the mother. How? What is the reason? When Swami Brahmananji went there and started meditating, he saw the form of mother. Tirupati. So he says this is mother's temple. Ramanuja has changed it to the Vaishnava temple to follow. And he has made some modifications. He wanted to do some more. God was not willing for further modifications. Whatever he has made, that God has accepted. Still he wanted to do some more modifications. Then overnight he sees his cot was below all the 7 mountains. He was above all the 7 mountains, but he saw morning. Then he come to the conclusion, no more modification, but God was not willing, that's why he has thrown me down. And what is the proof that it is mother's temple? If you go there, these 4 walls, on the corner of the walls, you see the line. If it is a Vishnu temple, Garuda should be there. Why a line? And they say yearly functions, if when Vaikuntha Ekadasi or some Krishna Janmashtami or Ramanavami, they should do all the functions. No. They do all in Navaratris, the main functions. You are telling Vishnu and doing all in Navaratri. But people, you see, the ordinary people, they don't go to so many details. If the mother is not appeased, they will be in danger. So they do all the functions. What I mean to say is, by the will of God, this Visishtadvaita has been created for the good of. That is why here Gaudapadacharya says the scriptures out of compassion, they have given so many types of worship, upasana and the actions. So, finally, thy will be done. Thy will be done. Daivecha pravartate. So, whatever he wants, it is his creation. He manipulates whatever he wants, but through somebody. So, Maya Vidhite, he says, explain the words of first line, he says, Ataha. Acha. Now he says, when it is said that duality is the product of non-duality, a doubt may occur to someone that even duality may be real in the highest sense, like non-duality, hence it is said. Explaining the words of the first line, he says, Ataha. Yat paramatma sad advaitam maya vidhyate etat taimirika aneka chandravat rajju sarpadaradibhir bedairiva. Now he is explaining, if only non-duality is there, how it appears as dual. Is it that which is supreme reality, non-duality, appears as though differentiated owing to Maya, just as a man who suffers from defective vision sees the one moon as many, or just like a rope that appears differently as snake, line of water, but this is not real, for the self has no parts. Because of the defect in the eyes, he says, he sees two moons. And because of the defect in the eyes and defect in the mind, he sees this snake. For that, here the subcommentator is giving a logic. Vimatam tattvado veda rahitam. That is, the proponent is telling, you are saying that duality is there. We say duality is not there. Tattvato veda rahitam. The non-duality, there is no difference. Niravayavatvat, it is not having any parts. Nityatvat, it is real. Ajatvat, it is not taking any birth. So, Vitirekena mridadivat. He says, he is not giving a parallel illustration. He is giving a negative illustration. He is giving. Mridadivat. That is, the clay is changing into the part is not real. Not like that. Here, the Atman is not having any parts. It is not taking any, it is birthless. And as well as if it is birthless, it is deathless. And no parts, and it is the only real thing. And now, I think he can give another logic also, that the dualist is seeing, because of illusion, as a defective person sees two moons. Why a dualist is showing the duality? Because there is defect in his eyes. That I think he must have given somewhere, that I don't find. The substance is partless. The base for difference is because of the oscillations of the mind. Spurana dharmatvam savayavatvam. First he told that which is supreme reality, namely the non-duality, appears as though differentiated owing to illusion, just as a man who suffers from defective vision sees the one moon as many, are just like a rope that appears differently as a snake, line of water, but this is not real, for the self has no parts. So he has given three reasons. It is having no parts, it is real, and it is not having any birth or death. And here you see, the defect in the eyes is called Taimirika. They say. He etat Taimirika aneka chandravat rajjuhu. That is a defect due to cataract or whatever it may be, that we don't know. He sees two. And after operation of the eyes also, some of them they see two moons. But two moons are not there. On the operation of the eyes they see two moons. So that is only an illusion. In the same way, the dualist, he sees na paramarthato niravayavatvat atmanaha. It is real, it is not having parts. Savayavam hi avayavan yathatvena vidyate. That which is having parts alone can change, not the other. Yatha mudgatadi bhedahi. The clay is having parts, so you can make it. The clay is having parts, that's why you make a part. Tasman niravayavam, having no parts, ajam, having no birth, na anyatha, nanyatha kathanchana kenachidapi prakarena na vidyate tabhiprayaha. Here, the nanyatha, here it is written pa, but it should be ya, nanyatha. A thing possessed of parts may become modified owing to a change in its parts, just as clay becomes modified into part. The meaning implied is that the unborn self, being partless, does not undergo any modification in any manner whatsoever except through Maya. Maya or illusion.
Something which I think can be helpful and fundamental. This logic sometimes is not well understood by people in the West.
Which logic? Illusion.
Not just this. But for example, for a thing to modify, it must have parts. Can Swamiji elaborate a little bit the reasoning or the logic behind it?
The partless sky, ether, it is not changing because it is not having parts. And even according to physics, that which is having parts, that only changes. And a changing thing is not real. Now in all these scriptures, this one idea is there. Now, as we heard that day, now the scientists are also getting into the conclusion that something is there behind the mind. They are accepting. They are on that to prove. But when they prove that, science ends. Swamiji says, where religion starts, their science ends. Where science ends, their religion starts. And here it is just a thin line is in between. Whenever mind goes outside, we call it science. Whenever mind goes introvert, we call religion. That is, it is going, negating the body, mind and senses. People, they know well that mind is changing, mind is having parts. How many parts are there? Yes, that day they were telling. Mind is having different locations, this thing. And then senses are having parts, body is having parts. Now they also know the body is not real. And from this itself, we can tell them that which is having parts is not real. And everybody is having the same type of happiness in sleeping state. If it is not real or if it is having parts, so the experience should be differ. Experience should differ of this sleeping state. That is not, it is not differing. This also proves that it is partless. See, at times, what happens? You take a cake. Above, they put more sweet with so many colors, and below it is not having so much sweetness. Because it is having parts, more sweet and less sweet. Like that, if there are parts, there should be less bliss or less happiness and more happiness. In this sleep, you ask anybody, simply he says one thing, I slept well, I don't know anything. I had the highest happiness. If I don't get sleep, I take injection or tablets. Why you should take injections or tablets? Why you want to go to sleep? All these things we can give the day-to-day experiences, and we can prove because that one happiness or one bliss, sample of bliss, not absolute bliss, sample of bliss, everybody is getting, it is equal. That is why it is not changing. You know well that if a thing is having parts, it changes. And before you, the ether is there. It never changes. You put fire in that, you put so many things, and so much that it never changes. In this way only we have to convince them. They never take the scriptures as proof. So, in the general examples, we can explain them.
On the same point, not having parts, does it mean that it is undivided? Does it mean that it cannot be divided?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the meaning. Like the ether. The second thing, Swamiji, relates to modification. The things that are modified, are they the names and the forms? when we say modified, we talk about names and forms.
Hmm.
Names and forms can be modified, or are modified. Now, Swamiji, when we speak about the ether,
Hmm.
in the relative plane, the akasha. Akasha cannot be divided, so we are using it as an example. But at the same time, we also say that akasha itself is an appearance.
Hmm.
So, but in the relative plane, it's a good example for something which is undivided, cannot be modified. So we use akasha as an illustration, as an example, only in this sense. And on the other hand, we say the self cannot be divided. The self does not have power. Beside the self, we say everything else can be divided, does have power.
No, they don't say like that. Besides self, all other things are unreal.
Unreal.
Unreal. Say, suppose we are taking the illustration of ether. Ether, we say it is a substance because it is a substance. It is possessing a superimposed quality like blueness. Until and unless, if it is not a substance, you cannot see the blueness. And we are having 5 qualities, Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So all other 4s are in other 4 elements. So we do accept this as an element, one thing. If this ether, though partless, but it is not the bliss, but the ether which is within you is giving the highest bliss. So we say, though the ether inside is as big as the ether outside, this is an inert matter and that is full of bliss. If the bliss is there in the outside ether, then there will be no difference. But when you go inside, you are enjoying the bliss, you are enjoying the happiness. Happiness never comes to an inert thing. The outer ether is an inert thing. Only because of his all-pervasiveness, we are taking it as an example. Otherwise, we have to go against Shruti. Atmana Akasha Sambhuta. And he says the 5 elements. The elements he says unreal. And only one real thing is there. Then how can you accept the Akasha as well as the Atman, 2 things? But at the same time, we do say this Atman is all-pervading. Is it not? Then this Akasha is superimposed on that. And another thing is here, you can superimpose, whenever you are superimposing, the superimposed thing becomes unreal. So the element ether We say it is the product of Atman, manifested from the Atman. Because it is unreal, it cannot give you happiness as Atman, which is inside. So, previously I told, for every superimposition, you need a base. And when you see a rope, then only you can superimpose snake on that. When Brahman is there, then only you can superimpose on that the world. But the snake is not real. So also the superimposed world is not real. That Sri Krishna says, Nattoham teshu te mayi. I am in everything, but nothing is there in me. How is it possible? When you say it is superimposition, then everything is in God. Now, how much big the rope, so much big snake you see, but snake is not there. In the same way, when the rope is there, then only you can see snake. When rope is not there, you cannot see the snake. In the seemingly snake, there is no rope. Very simple equation. So in the seeming world, there is no God. That is why we say it is unreal. It is. Until and unless you accept the superimposition, you cannot conclude the oneness. In this way, somehow we have to make them understand, taking the support of her.
Nothing, Swamiji. Something very fundamental. We say if something is changing and it passes away, it is not real. So this statement, the proof of the truth of this declaration, first of all in the Shruti says so. But is there also a proof in reason for this statement?
Changing thing is not real.
Changing thing is not real.
In dissolution, everything goes to the subtle form. Nothing is there. When you go to deep sleep state, for you there is nothing. Is it not? Then, where they have gone for you? We say that everything is in the mind. Mind has taken the subtlest form in the sleeping state. So, when you wake up, then only you see the dream state or the waking state. He says simply, because of the modification of the mind, manaspandana, or the oscillation of the mind, we see it as real. And the I and mind, they are the instruments to get attachment with the outside objects. If you detach yourself from particular object or from particular person, then you don't feel anything for him or for the object. How? You say, I am detached. So the attachment and detachment is inside the mind. and the mind is changing. Mind is changing. At times you say, I want this, I am happy with this. And again the same you says, I don't want this, I am not happy with this. So what is changing here? Mind is changing. So the Shastra said it is matter. And while giving explanation to Svetaketu, he says, mind is matter. You go fast for 15 days, afterwards mind is not working. Why 15 days? 2 days you don't take anything. Then also mind will not work. That is, mind is supported by matter. So it is matter. It is changing. That we see. So everything is in the mind and everything is changing because of the mind. And only one witness is there to observe all these changes. That is not changing. That is your own self. In this way we have to. Huh? No, the tika is not over. The meaning of anyatha, he says, tasman niravayavam ajam na anyatha kathanchana. The sub-commentator says, is from the absoluteness, he says. Anyatha kathanchana kenachid api prakarena na vidyate. The absolute never changes. That he says. Again telling the negation is for to take the effect, the quality and with parts. The negation that kenachidapi prakarena vidyate cannot be negated. Why? It is not having any quality, it is not having any parts. Brahman can never change by any means. If you accept the difference in oneness, now opponent is asking, if you accept the difference in oneness, what defect comes? That is tatpato. Tatpato vidhyamanehi amritam ajam advayam swabhavata san matyatam raje. If the transformation were real, that which by nature is immortal, unborn and non-dual would become mortal. It will be, it dies as though fire would become cold. Do you think that fire is changing its nature? What I asked, that much you should tell. I asked, is fire changing its nature? No. So also the Atman can never change its nature. It is partless, non-dual, it is unborn, it is deathless. But if you consider it as changing, then it becomes mortal. It will, the deathlessness will be not there. It becomes mortal. Then he says, all right, I do agree. Let Atman be mortal. What is the result? If the Atman is mortal, where from you are telling? How you are talking? A dead man cannot talk. If you are telling but with what you are talking. And you are telling it becomes mortal. So, he says, ajam. It never dies. Tachanishtam. Swabhava vaiparitya gamanam. Sarva pramana virodha. Even the direct perception will not be there if you think that it is mortal. Ajam, avyayam, atmatattvam, maya, viditena paramada. Because of delusion it is changing. Tasman na paramartha sat. Oh, here you should. Artham anarthamayipotundi. But that is undesirable. The fire would become cold, but that is undesirable. Since it involves a contradiction in its very nature, and also since it is opposite to all valid proof, the self which is unborn and undecaying becomes modified only through Maya, but not in reality. Therefore, duality is not the supreme truth. Paramartha sad, that da should be consonant, not with a vowel. Paramartha sat dvaitam, na paramartha sat dvaitam. Therefore, duality is not the supreme truth. Now, we are going to 20th Karika. Now we are in the evening. Now we are in the evening. We have to go to 20th Karika.
Maybe now.
All right. He says, yetu ajataseva bhavasya jatimichanti vadinaha ajato hi amruto bhavo madhyatam kathameshyati. In relative plane, dualism is not absolute. If the dualism is absolute, then you will not get moksha. That is telling. The disputants think of the very unborn self on the terms of birth. They take the unborn self as terms of birth. How can the self that is unborn and immortal tend towards mortality? It cannot. That he has told through this Karika. Ajatasya bhavasya jatimichanti vadina. Besides the non-dualist, all others, they accept birth for the self, the consciousness. All the others. Ajato hi amruto bhavo. It never undergoes death or change. How it takes the mortality? That is the question again he has put. By nature it is birthless. By nature it is bliss, not having death. But some of our own followers, he says, some of our own followers accept birth of Atman in the real sense. Jatasya, then he gives the illustration from the quotation from the Gita, Jatasya hi dhruvo mutyuhu. If one takes birth, it is sure to die. Iti nyayena jyusayati. This is the logic, he says. Yetu punaha kechid Upanishad vyakhyataro. He says, some are there, too intelligent, thinking they are very intelligent. And what they are explaining? Upanishads. They have to explain oneness. But they say, Brahmavadinaha. Brahma vaditum sheelam yesha. They just talk. Brahmavadi is in debate as opponent or proponent. He just talks. That's why Lord Shankara was not satisfied by telling Brahmavadina. He says, Vavaduka, Garulius. What is you call? Garulius or Garulius? Huh? How do you pronounce? Huh? Garrulous or Garulus? Garrulous. It is there. So, Garulus, Gaurulus, you tell something, they only talk too much, doing nothing. They talk too much. Vavadukaha. Ajatasyeva atmadatvasya amrutasya swabhavo jatim utpattim ichyati. That which cannot take birth. For that, he says, they want a birth, they accept birth. Paramarthate eva tesham jatam chet. If the birthless takes a birth, tadev bhartitam yeshyati avasyam. If it takes birth, then it undergoes death. Sa cha ajato hi amruto bhavo, but it is never taking birth and it is deathless by nature. That is the Atman. How it be immortal? How it be mortal? Katham martyatam eshati na kathanchana martyatvam swabhava vaiparityam eshasi. It never changes its nature, so it cannot take birth. But those interpreters of Upanishads who are garulous, how you pronounce it? I don't understand this. Garulous. Again?
Now you are learning Canadian pronunciation. Garrulous.
Garrulous. And who talk garrulous? Something. Think that the reality known as the self, which by nature is unborn and immortal, has birth. They accept birth. In the real sense, if the self are born as they think, it must necessarily undergo mortality. But how can the self that is unborn and immortal by nature undergo mortality? The meaning is that it will never become mortal, which state is opposite to its very nature. We cannot change the nature. But here you see, in every individual, that they are having some impressions in the mind, which the Gita puts as Prakriti. That is their nature, we say. But that nature is in the mind. Mind is changing. So, you can change your nature very easily by discrimination and dispassion, by controlling the mind. If you are an angry man, it does not mean all through the life you should remain an angry person. You can change. If you are having, say, malice towards somebody, that also you can change. But here, that is matter. Mind is matter. But this is consciousness. This you cannot change. That's what it says.